Shoot the Ones, a weekly mixed martial arts podcast with two of your favorite Ukrainian co-hosts. I am Dema.
And I'm Genya. What a show we have for our listeners this week. But before outlining the order of today's podcast, Shoot the Ones has reached a milestone we need to celebrate.
Yeah, man, we've reached our 10th episode, somewhat of a small achievement, which we are really excited about.
Definitely, man. A really cool feeling. The support and following we are generating is very exciting for us. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we hope to continue bringing our fans premium and exclusive MMA content.
Yeah, for sure, Genya. Before we start, you can follow us on SoundCloud. Check us out on YouTube. We are also on iTunes, Stitcher, and MMApodcast.com. For this week's podcast, we're going to switch it up a little bit, and since this is still so fresh on our minds, we want to first discuss UFC 210, which happened last night, and then we're going to get into Bellator 176, I believe.
Yeah, 176. I feel like we got to start there, Dema, because of the debacle, man. We had so many issues with the New York State Athletic Commission that we kind of got to start there with the Weidman-Mousasi fight, no?
Yeah, I would like to start with the main event and the co-main event, and all of the controversy kind of surrounding the lead up to the main event, as well as the kind of a fallout with what happened with the co-main event. But let's do co-main event first. I feel like you have a lot to say there.
Yeah, I'm going to preface what I say with I was rooting for Mousasi. And albeit I was rooting for him, Mousasi was getting his steam under him. I felt like he was clearly on his way to winning the match. But again, we've seen something we've never seen before, and it's turning out to be one of the biggest blunders in MMA history, albeit I could see myself making the same mistake that Dan Miragliotta made. What had happened was, Dema, but what happened was, Weidman he was trying to play the hands on the ground game. So before he could get his other hand down, Mousasi kneed him with a knee, and then Weidman put his hands down on the ground, and Mousasi picked his hand up off the ground and kneed him in the face. Both legal punches. The controversy lies of what happened in the aftermath. Anybody could have made, in my eyes, the mistake that Dan Miragliotta made. But in the aftermath of this, they had like a weird stoppage. They didn't exactly know how to handle the situation. Dan Miragliotta went to the corner. They told him it was a legal shot. He went and informed Weidman it was a legal shot. Weidman, I think, wanted to kind of play a no contest because once he was told that it was a legal shot, he kind of perked up. Oh, I'm good to go. Put me back in, coach. And eventually they decided to stop it, was what I gathered from it. You have something to add to that, to the debacle part of it?
I mean, very strange and bizarre. I get it. This is New York is messing up because they're still very new to the sport. They are also, so entrenched in the boxing world that making that transition to MMA seems to be a challenge for them.
Yeah, this is their second UFC show, if I'm accurate, and it's been a debacle both times. The other time, referees not enforcing rules, not understanding the rules, allowing punches after the bell type stuff. This time we had even more of a circus. The weigh-ins, they allowed Cormier to kind of push down on a towel without having to redo a weigh-in, and mind you, I was rooting for Cormier there. They had the debacle of the breast implants while allowing Miesha Tate to fight on the previous New York fight, no problem, while she obviously has breast implants as well. And then they reversed their decision and let her fight, saying that they spoke to her physician. So it was a debacle all around, but with this, my problem and my feeling on it was I wanted to see a clear, decisive ending. I felt like Mousasi clearly had the advantage. Like me and you were predicting last week, we said Mousasi is going to have an experience advantage, and even if Weidman gets him on the ground, he's going to be comfortable. You saw how many attempts he was throwing up, Dema, and using punches from the bottom, elbows from the bottom. But to Weidman's credit, he had better jiu-jitsu than I imagined. He put Mousasi in two situations I thought that had him in a lot of trouble. He had him in one time in like a front headlock that I think he tried to switch to an anaconda, and the other one I think he went for an armbar, and it was pretty close. But Mousasi defended both correctly because Mousasi's got about 50 fights, and he's very comfortable on the ground, and that's why I was so confident in picking Mousasi here.
Yeah, Musasi's a wizard on the ground, and I really did not see him, being really in that much of a trouble at any point in the fight. However, Weidman had effective use of wrestling. I do think chasing the takedown tired him out and opened him up to those shots
yes,
that landed on Gegard's behalf. We saw Weidman tire out in the second round, and he shot for a takedown, which we saw Gegard do a sprawl and begin to land the knees, which caused the controversial finish there. The fight itself, to that point, was competitive, and I enjoyed it. I do want to make a footnote here and say I watched in a crowd of casuals, so this was hard to follow at times. I was at my buddy's house. My best friend had a bachelor's party, and we were kind of, drinking, and there was some poker being played on the side. So the attention wasn't, the best. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch some of the fights, especially the prelim ones. But I do clearly remember what caused the debacle, as you like to say, and it was kind of embarrassing to sit there and explain or have to explain what is or may be going on to a group of people that aren't necessarily following the sport. If I'm making any sense here.
Oh, absolutely, and I completely can relate to you, or I guess not so much relate to you, but understand you having a life and not being able to watch the entire cards, and being at a friend's bachelor party that does come first, so it should be completely understandable to the listeners. Regarding this fight and my feelings on it, like I thought Mousasi was surely on his way to victory, but I feel like Weidman got screwed out of possible chance to recover. I mean, like hypothetically, the fight should have just kept going. Dan should have never stopped it, and because those were both legal knees. He shouldn't have had that 3 minutes to recover, but since he did, I think that they should have given Weidman that chance to fight again.
I agree with your points. Ultimately, Dan Margliotta, the referee, is the man responsible for making this mistake. However, in his defense, it was one of those situations which, to a naked eye, would very well come across as an illegal shot. And it wasn't until I personally went back and saw it on the replay where I saw that the shot was legit.
Yeah, this is like kind of like in basketball. If two guys are going like full speed, they go up. It looks like a lot of contact, but there's no contact, and the NBA refs have to be good enough to see that. It's almost exactly like that, just in comparison the analogy of seeing it with the naked eye, because like it was a split second where his hand was on the ground, and then Mousasi pulled it off the ground, and yes, it's part of the ref's job to be good enough to see that, but like you, I don't blame Dan entirely, because that's a tough call to make. A lot of nerves in there. It's tough. It's tough.
There was a lot of fuck ups on the commission. I want to find a little bit of a silver lining, so to speak, and say hopefully that each one of these experiences has been kind of a good learning experience for the athletic commission, and they're able to learn from this and not make the same mistakes going forward.
Yeah, I agree completely, because it's going to get to the point where guys are like, "Whoa, I don't want to fight New York." All kinds of funny stuff is going on. I don't know.
Kind of in line when Nevada was imposing ridiculous fines on fighters. We had a public outcry with some of the fighters saying, I don't really want to fight in Nevada per se because of some of the harsher punishments.
Yeah.
That kind of may have swayed the public opinion a little bit and may have done some effect as far as causing Nevada to step back and reevaluate their positions.
Yeah, and despite us saying that, the numbers are looking good in New York. They're getting good ticket sales. They're getting good sales in New York. It's proven to work. So I'm sure the fighters actually benefit from that too and make a little bit better purses up there. So I'm just saying hypothetically, if we keep having these amateur errors, that's the possibility. That's the next. That's what me and Deem are saying. That's the next gradual step. That's
What
the progression.
what about the fights themselves? How did you like the? Let's do a breakdown of the main card, going top bottom.
I enjoyed the card. I thought it was a great card overall.
It was a great card, although the prelims had more kind of a flashy knockout, so to say. The main card lived up to the expectations. There was some surprises in the store for us. A couple of retirements. One came as a bit of a surprise for both of us, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, a lot of retirements, a lot of guys that are, I think, going to be in the discussion for top of their weight class at some point in their careers. Like guys that, lesser known guys like Burgos and Gillespie, and guys that could really make a difference like Bibliatov. Like a lot of good fighters on this card that are going under the radar.
What do you think about Daniel Cormier and Rumble Johnson? I mean, we kind of predict this fight in our last episode and saw the outcome kind of play out how we predicted it, except it did not take as much time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was going to take a whole lot more time than that. It lasted 2.5 rounds, but it did go as we predicted in the sense of the outcome. I don't feel it went the way we predicted, like the way that the fight played out. Like, I don't think me or you could have called that Anthony Johnson was going to go in there and wrestle with Daniel.
Yeah.
That was a little bit weird, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that actually caused a lot of anger with his corner till the point of the guy was retiring and Henry Hooft and them left their arena.
Yeah, as soon as Cormier got the choke, and excuse my language, this is gonna be the first time I cuss in 3 episodes of Shoot the Ones, but fuck that guy Hooft, man. As soon as Cormier applied the choke, he just walked the hell on, and Neil Melanson, he also got the hell out, and Daniel's in the ring doing his interview, and he's like, "Hey, where's my corner? Where's my corner?" And I don't know, for a guy who's been that prolific in his career, who's a good guy at heart. Like, I just feel like fuck those guys, man. Like, if I was an MMA fighter, I'd really think twice about training with either Henry Hooft and Neil Melanson.
Yeah, not the most classic move on behalf of Anthony's corner, and my hat is off to him. He had a tremendous career full of highlight knockout reels. Kind of sad to see him go. I think he has a lot more potential left in the light heavyweight division. And let's circle back to the fight. Nobody anticipated the wrestling. Nobody. He was effective with it in the first round, I would say, and he, slowed down in the second. And I believe Cormier started defending the wrestling really, really well and started tiring Anthony Johnson out and imposing his game on him.
Yeah, I agree. Nobody expected Anthony Johnson to wrestle, and that's kind of where I can understand the corner of Anthony Johnson just getting so frustrated. Like they worked for so long for a game plan, and he completely threw it out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of it was a little bit strange. But yeah, the fight itself, like Anthony Johnson hurt Cormier at one point. I think his wrestling a little bit threw Cormier off and allowed for that opening where he got the kick. However, his strategy to keep that strategy up and continue wrestling, I thought was kind of the downfall, because that kind of tired him out, and he didn't quit, but he put himself in a bad position again.
While that's a good strategy to use against Cormier, you have to be able to keep that up for 5 rounds. Considering Cormier is such a tough guy, we have not seen anybody put him out
Yeah,
yet.
and he's a grinder, and
Yeah.
yeah, and he's a grinder, and he hasn't like even the times that he's lost, he's been bested in a 5 round decision. He's not losing because of his like Anthony Johnson, Jan Blachowicz on this card really showed it. But guys will lose because they don't have the endurance for the fight. That's never happened to Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel is always gonna be a well-oiled machine for that fight. He's gonna be a well-prepared athlete.
Yeah, I agree with you. So Daniel comes out on top in a tremendous performance. He makes some call outs in the end. Talks a little bit of shit to John Jones, which was entertaining. I found, and Jimmy Manua was in the crowd too. A little bit of back and forth between them.
Yeah, that back and forth was fun. Although we all know what happened if Daniel fought Jimmy. But the talk with John Jones got pretty heated in there.
Yeah, John Jones is going to make a comeback around summertime, and it's looking like probably going to be the next fight.
Yeah, with Anthony retiring, see what I thought they were gonna do after this fight. Because me and you both, we had a feeling this was the route things were gonna take. Daniel was gonna continue being the champ. Um, I thought it was gonna be Daniel versus John Jones because that's the fight you kind of have to make. John's the only man that's beaten Daniel in his 20 fight career. However, I thought Anthony Johnson was gonna fight Jimmy. I don't know what they're gonna do with Jimmy now.
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know, to be honest. Let's see how the fight between Gustafson and Glover goes. That's also in the air, and looks like might set up a first contenders.
Yeah, or Patrick Cummins just got to win.
Patrick Cummins just got a win over Jan Blachowicz in a close contest,
So
which we will discuss momentarily. I believe we talked enough technically about Musasi and Weidman
yeah.
already. So let's get into the women's fight,
This
mid
might,
card.
yeah, this might have been fight of the night, man. We had complaints all week from hardcore MMA fans, like, why is this on the main card? Who are these 1-0 UFC versus 0-0? But I think UFC was keyed in on how good Cynthia is.
They put on a good scrap, and they're pushing Cynthia.
Yeah, I mean, Cynthia's team alpha male, and she is legit, man. She came out, her intro. Did you get to watch the intro with all your friends there, or did y'all kind of
Where she was coming out and she was mean mugging everybody.
Straight Diego Sanchez.
Yup.
Yeah, she winking at the camera.
Yup.
Like, walking up to her opponent when
She
they
was a
announce her
gangster.
name, do like the cutthroat thing.
Girls is gangsta.
And then, I mean, she backed all that up in the ring. I mean, God, I said ring again in the cage in there. And man, Cynthia was looking fast. Kind of like, I mean, she got tagged a couple times by Pearl, but not to the point where you're like, oh, that hurt her. But you're like, okay, she hit her. But man, when they got to the ground, there was a drastic difference between the two girls, and just Cynthia Calvillo's ability to maneuver with the other person. Like every time Pearl would try to roll out of position, Cynthia would switch to either a better position, like the back mount, or she would switch to full mount. But every time she would end up in a much more advantageous position.
Yeah, like her ability to roll and keep a dominant position was incredible.
About as high level as I've seen with that ability.
Now, with that said, I have never seen Pearl Gonzalez before. I do believe she's gonna need to step up in competition if they want to keep, pumping her up so much.
I agree. Maybe Rose Namajunas, Michelle Watterson winner or something like that nature.
That would be a hot fire.
And Pearl looked okay. I enjoyed Pearl. I think she's got a lot of heart. She had a little bit of issues before. Do you think that affected her at all with the whole breast
the implants?
With the UFC and the Athletic Commission pretty much telling the whole world that she's got implants. That was kind of weird. New York State Athletic Commission was all over the place. And I'll say it here on Shoot the Ones. In my opinion, it's the worst athletic commission, not just in the United States, but in the whole world. I mean, you can look at Brazil's athletic commission, you can look at China's, wherever the heck they go fight.
I
It's
would
better than
say
what New York's got to offer there.
I would say the criticism is not unfair. If you want to look at precedents alone, there have been enough issues with events happening in New York to warrant saying that. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
how many times have breast implants just flown out and killed somebody? I
I
mean, it's
don't.
a possibility, but I don't think it's ever happened in the history of
It has
fighting.
not happened. I think well, obviously, they don't want it to happen. If you want to think about it, like maybe a high kick, misses the head, kind of goes a
Uh,
little bit low. It does have a force of a baseball bat, and I could see that maybe being an issue. However, if you say Tate has fought and she has breast implants,
uh,
then that sets a precedent where a fighter should be allowed to fight. You can't have it one way and then switch it up, a couple of months later.
and I don't understand. They were like, we talked to her physician, but like in reality, she did get hit in the boob. It's not like that shit just punctured and flew out. Like she was good to go.
And
It was a skills difference, not a boobs difference.
no, it wasn't. If anything, there it could be a bit of a detriment. She might have to lose a little bit of extra weight or whatever the implant may weigh.
Yeah. Misha talked about that. It's a little bit tougher to make weight after this.
Okay, so yeah, there is something to that. Not just me rambling on.
I agree, but overall, it was a great fight between two gals, and what is this? The 115
Good
weight?
scrappy fight. Yeah, I did not.
115.
It was not as one sided as I anticipated. I thought Cynthia was gonna just
Just maul her.
run through her because when they're building up guys or gals, in this case, they seem to match them up with fights that they really look good in and shine. And not to say that she didn't, but like I said before, not as one-sided affair as I anticipated. So good scrap.
Yeah, they give Cynthia two submission rear naked choke finishes in the UFC against two pretty good fighters, Amanda Bobby Cooper and Pearl Gonzalez. It's exciting to see where she goes in the future. She's shown some real scrappy, good ground skills. But the next fight that we had on the card was Patrick Cote versus Thiago Alves, and Thiago Alves kind of looked like his old self. What do you think, Dima?
Yeah, man, I was a bit surprised considering some of the things I said in the last edition of our podcast. I anticipated Thiago coming out and firing shots and kind of beginning to fade, whereas that was not the case. Thiago came in a tremendous shape and started putting together good combinations. His leg techniques, his striking was on par. It was there. It was crisp, and he got the better of Patrick Cote.
Yeah, I agree. And despite us picking overwhelmingly good on this card, we did miss the first two on the main card, and this being one of them, Thiago Alves, Patrick Cote, and Thiago Alves seemed to just have a little bit more power throughout the fight. He seemed to have a little bit more power and a little bit more confidence in his strikes. However, Patrick Cote did go for it. He, especially in the third round, I gave Patrick the third round. A lot of the judges scored at 30-27. I think one judge gave it 29-28, but Patrick Cote really gave it his all. And afterwards, he did leave his gloves in the ring. He retired afterwards, bringing our second retirement of the night after Anthony Johnson retired earlier that we talked about earlier in our show.
Yeah, man. I think this was a good matchup. This was kind of a 50-50. So the outcome here, shouldn't really be like shocking or surprising.
Yeah, that's not a shocker by any means.
But it's good to see Thiago come out in good shape. Kind of flashes of his former self, where he was a scary striker.
Yeah, like you said, it's not a shocker, but at the same time, this is not the same fighter we saw versus Jim Miller at 155 or at what he pretended to be 155, whatever you want to call what happened there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those fights that could have happened like 7 years ago, and would have been just as good, if not better. Moving on, Patrick Cote retiring. He was one of the guys that paved the way for the Canada market. They used him heavy to get in Canada as GSP kind of came in and rode that wave and really, really made MMA popular in Canada. So my hat is off to him again. It's kind of becoming my phrase that I say when the fighters retire. He had a good career, and we respect him a lot here at Shoot the Ones.
Yeah, man, this is a guy. I'm not sure if he's quite Hall of Fame. Maybe he's borderline Hall of Fame. But at the same time, if you remember, he actually fought for the title. He got to the point where he fought Anderson Silva. It was a good fight. It was back
Yeah.
and forth, and he hurt his knee. And they had to call that fight for Anderson Silva victory, but it was a little bit unfortunate ending to a fight. And since then, he never quite made it back, but always an exciting fighter and a fighter that we like.
The word I was looking for earlier was pioneer.
Mhm.
He's a real pioneer of the sport.
Yeah, and I would say Thiago Alves as well.
Yeah, Thiago Alves as well. So it was a fight between guys that will possibly end up in hall, like Hall of Fame, or
Hall of Remember.
or one of the guys that could be like low key.
Yeah, I think it's more of the Hall of the ones that us hardcore remembers. Because I don't think they'll get that kind of recognition for fighting and shit. Because John Fitch gets no recognition. But Thiago Alves, I think.
I just think they have more exciting fighting styles than somebody per se like Fitch.
Yeah, Thiago Alves actually has been around since UFC 92.
Yeah.
It's a long
Veteran.
time. What
Veteran.
were we on last night? 210?
Yep. Holy
His
shit.
First one was 92. Pretty sure we watched that one. I don't remember who it was against, but yeah, they were talking about that on the broadcast last night. How it was in 92. You ready to move on to the next fight, Dema?
I
Or
want
do you have
to.
anything else to add on that one?
I don't have a lot to add. How did the fight? It was hard for me to pay attention.
Yeah.
Again, as I mentioned, we were kind of partying up a little bit. How did that fight go for you? How did you score the rounds? If you want to talk about that briefly.
Yeah, I had it also 29-28, and I could see where the judges gave it 30-27. I gave Cote the third round because Cote really went ham for it and was landing some good punches. But first two rounds, Thiago was really hurting him with his patented leg kicks.
Yep.
And on top of that, he actually rocked his chin a couple times. He hit him with like punches Cote wasn't completely expecting,
Yep.
and they knocked him off balance. And we as MMA fans know those shots that catch you off balance, or that take you off of your balance, are the ones that score the most points.
Was there a
in
left
terms of
hook?
the judges.
That knocked him down.
Yeah, I
or
think
was
he.
that a
I
different
think he
fight?
even got him with a jab that knocked him down in the first round.
Okay.
It was just the timing where Cote. The worst kind of punches are the ones that you're not expecting.
Gotcha.
And those are what Thiago was mixing it up real well in there, and he was more active than he's been in his recent fights. We got to see, I believe, a little bit healthier Thiago this time at 170. He was talking about making a good weight cut here, and I think that played a huge role in his victory. Because I think both guys wanted the win. They were very hungry for a win, even though Cote retired. And I know the way you like to approach things, like if a guy's got one foot out the door, he's more than likely going to lose. And I completely agree with that. But maybe you could say that about the way Anthony Johnson fought, but I don't think you could say that about the way Cote fought. Like
Yeah, some people
He would. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I know that's a little bit rude here on Shoot the Ones, but he gave it everything he had to like try to, because he knew he was down 2 rounds and he wanted to TKO him, and he gave it everything he had. That's not like typical of somebody that's going out.
Yeah, some people just wanna go out with a blaze.
The last two guys, Brad Pickett kind of went out the same way, but it turned out the opposite for him.
Yeah. Cote didn't get knocked out, which was a good difference.
He left guns ablaze.
Yes, sir. That was a good scrap. So the one that started off the main card was the one that was a lot more of a surprise to you and I. Alex, or was it Charles?
Charles.
Oliveira?
This is Charles.
Oliveira defeats Will Brooks.
Yeah, like you said, the second loss to Oliveira in a row, so I could see how you're a little confused on that one. But yeah, we weren't expecting this at all, man. Charles Oliveira is coming off of 2 losses to Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, where he's getting beaten pretty convincingly in both of those. And Will Brooks, he was Bellator champ, man. He looked almost unbeatable there. And since coming to the UFC, he has not looked like a top-notch guy anymore. And I'm a fan, so it's hard for me to admit that. But that's kind of what I'm starting to gather. He has had some tough matchups. Some guys that are a little bit underrated. The 2 Oliveiras, I would say.
Yo, I mean, yeah, things did not go his way, and I did not anticipate that. Charles Oliveira came out and kind of stuck to him and did not let go. He took him down and worked his way towards the choke. Just dominant in his grappling. Wow.
Yeah, my feelings on the fight were like Oliveira's last 2 losses were at 145, Dema.
Yeah.
So here he's coming up to 155, and it's kind of like the same thing as what we talked about in the prior fight, where the guy just looks a lot healthier. Even Rogan was like, just watching the fight, anybody that's watching the fight, me or you, we could see Oliveira is still the bigger man at 155 than Will Brooks was. He was much longer, taller, and so it just makes you kind of like scratch your head, like how is he fighting at 145 and thinking he's coming in healthy? I do think 155 is a better weight class, especially with like Will Brooks is one of the best wrestlers in that division, and that's the kind of fighter that Oliveira had the most trouble against, and he beat him no problem quickly. What was it, 2 minutes, something like that?
Something.
2 minutes and 30 seconds.
But yeah, Oliveira had a tremendous performance, and that's like, I know they stopped doing submissions of the night, but that's the submission of the night.
I didn't look afterwards. I kind of fell asleep after the card. Did you see if he got performance of the night or anything like that, or who got it?
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, we'll check that later on in the show.
But I, for me, that was one of the performances of the night.
Yeah, grabbed his back and was relentless, man. Got the submission. Good fight. Good fight for Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
Not so much for Will Brooks. Back to the drawing board for Will Brooks. And we hear Shoot the Ones are cheering for him, man. He's a good guy, good fighter, and kind of want to see him jump back on that horse and win some fights.
Speaking of jumping back on the horse and winning some fights, what do you think about Miles Jury?
Wow, Dema. Yeah, man. Miles Jury came back after 3 years and looked like he didn't miss a beat.
Man, he beat the hell out of his opponent, and that was when we tuned in as a party to kind of start watching the fights. And that was a good one to introduce the sport of MMA to some of the casuals in the room.
I agree, man, because it was one of those where one guy was clearly better than the other. Miles Jury really had his way with Mike Delatorre, and then when he got him on the ground, the beating he gave him was brutal.
Eesh, those elbows.
Even if you're rooting for Miles Jury, like my money was clearly on Jury, and I'm feeling bad for this Delatorre guy. I'm like, oh, that's tough, man. Let's step in there, ref. No more of this.
Yeah, I felt about the same way.
Yeah, and the fight before that was a complete domination, Dema. Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, definitely lived up to his nickname in this one, Nightmare. A lot of guys have nicknames, like even the guy, his opponent that he was fighting, Tarzan Strickland, that don't really make sense. This guy's nickname makes a lot of sense. He was a real nightmare in there.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell I was thinking when I said, yeah, maybe Sean Strickland has that last episode. Hilarious. This was, 30-26?
Yeah, 30-26 on 2 cards, 30-27 on 1 card. I don't know what the ref was saying when he gave the 30-27, because I thought the first 2 rounds were 10-8s. Like, they were dominant, where Strickland got no offense and just took a beating to the point where you're like, well, you can't stop it because, he's intelligently defending himself, but he's got 0 offense coming. Like, Camera was 1 step ahead of him the whole time, and he was a nightmare for Strickland, just like his nickname would indicate.
Do you know what I like to call fights like that? When he does everything to his opponent except for finish him.
Yeah.
essentially.
What do you call that?
I don't know what to call it, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. That takes his record to 10-1. Black Zillion's representative, and exciting to see. I mean, he's a good fighter. Kind of want to see him up against some top 10 guys, don't you, Dima?
Did he or did he not call out Neil Magny? I
He
believe.
did. He did have some words for Neil Magny. He said he wants to fight somebody in the top 10. He said, "Give me somebody I can destroy like Neil Magny," something along those lines. Which I kind of agree with him. I don't see where Neil Magny offers him much threats.
Oh, that's a good fight. I think it would be a little bit more closely matched than we think. I think Magny poses some unique problems, maybe with his submissions.
Yeah, submissions and length. I think Cameron Usman and it's funny. I predicted earlier with Josh Emmett last week that he was going to beat Desmond Green. Yet bet on Desmond Green. We'll talk about that later. But it's kind of the same thing, man. His wrestling, Cameron Usman's wrestling, is really good. His camp, man. He's training with like some top guys. I've seen sparring video of him and Will Brooks in there. Like he's in there with some killers. And I just see his career trajectory going up until he runs into one of those killers like Demian Maia.
And I agree with you. I mean, assuming he does not make any mistakes in his bout against Neil Magny, if they were to go ahead and book that, I think he takes that and goes forward in the rankings.
Mm-hmm. And in our next one, we had just savage killer Shane Burgos taking damage and didn't care, man. He just kept marching forward at Charles all night until he got the finish. What do you think of that fight?
I didn't. I only caught the finish of that. But I did hear he wasn't winning the fight, but he persevered and continued walking forward, as you said, to get that finish.
Yeah, man. This guy is Shane Burgos. He's got two other brothers in MMA. Like, he lives in an MMA family, and he is a straight up gangster the way he fights. And I've seen in both his fights in the UFC. I forgot who he fought first. The guy that won Tough Brazil, he beat him by marching him down the whole time and just trusting his power. And he did the same thing against Rosa. He let Rosa get the kicks. He let him get the pepper shots.
Mm-hmm.
But he marched him down for 3 rounds. And when he hit him, he stung him. Kind of like Derek Lewis of a much smaller weight class. What is this, 150 or 155 or 170? Burgos, I think it might be 155, to be honest with you. I'm looking it up as we speak. 145, excuse me. He fights like a Derek Lewis of 145 weight class. He's constantly marching forward. If you hit him, he's right back in the pocket in your face. It's his style of fighting.
Does he get hit a lot?
Yeah, that's part of his strategy. He and it might be a problem for him in the future, to be honest. I mean, it's a risky strategy, but he trusts his chin and he trusts his power.
Yeah, I'm not. It's a fan friendly style, but me personally, I favor more of a technical approach where a guy would prefer to avoid getting hit.
He's a little bit like, you've watched Mike Perry fight quite a bit, right?
Yeah, not the most intelligent fighter.
He's got a Mike,
but exciting one.
He's got a Mike Perry type style with head movement. Like, whereas Mike Perry moves his head none.
Yep.
This guy does move around. He's tricky. He's cutting angles, but he's also like, instead of having to judge space between the fighters, he wants to be in your face the whole time. He wants to be close range, striking with you, because he knows that his power is better than your power.
Mm-hmm.
Good fight, though, man. Back and forth. Finally ended with a knockout in the 3rd round.
Yeah, man. Next fight, we'll talk light heavyweight, where we saw Patrick Cummins defeat Jan Blachowicz by a majority decision.
Good fight, Dima. Back and forth, man. Jan Blachowicz rocked Patrick Cummins 3 times in the 1st round. Looked like it might have been a 10-8 type round. And after that, man, Patrick Cummins came back with a dominant round 2 and a really dominant round 3, where also could have been a possible 10-8. I wouldn't have scored it a 10-8, but I could see I would be okay with a judge giving it a 10-8 in the 3rd round. And really showed once again, he's got really good wrestling.
So I didn't watch this fight, so I'm gonna act more as a kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
I have some questions. So you said he pretty much wrestling was the winning factor for Cummings in this fight.
Wrestling and conditioning, because of his wrestling and his years of wrestling, Jan had a great first round. He was able to do a little bit in the second round, but then he got really exhausted. Like one point, he even put his hands on the ground to hold himself up.
And that's where Cummings was able to put the pace on him and just keep driving forward.
Kinda, and this is an issue that's happened in like 2 or 3 of Jan's UFC fights. Like this is an ongoing issue of cardio. Like he's a guy with a lot of strength, a lot of like muscles built up.
Yep.
But that cardio, like when somebody starts, Patrick Cummings has a little bit of a poor man Daniel Cormier style.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to wear on you, lean on you, hit some ground and pound,
grind on you, do some dirty boxing.
Exactly, and that's a really tiring style of fight, and kind of like the originator Randy Couture was style of fighting,
Yeah.
Like really wear you out, and then you're there for the taking because you got no energy.
Interesting.
But yeah, he zapped Jan's energy, and he did that by using his superior wrestling ability.
So where do you think this puts Patrick Cummings in division?
Well, as one tough mofo, but I don't really think he's way more skilled than even the guy he beat. I see him having a hard time versus virtually anybody. But man, you gotta respect the guy. You gotta he came from simply a wrestling base. He's only been doing striking for a couple years, and he's able to compete mostly off of toughness. And as we talked about on the show many times, you don't want that to be your number one skill, toughness. I mean, it's a good skill to have, don't get me wrong, but that's a dangerous skill to be your best skill.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about it. Kind of light heavyweight is shallow.
Yeah, I would say he beat the number 12 guy.
And the guy that's like clear number 3 just retired out of nowhere. So
he's probably between the 9-12 range.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Cummings now. So he'll probably take on somebody from the 6 to 13 range.
Gotcha. Maybe a loser of upcoming Gus and Glover. Although I believe he's fought Glover before and got beat up.
Yeah, that didn't go well for him, did it? I remember that fight.
Yeah.
And it looked like this one was going to go the same way in the first round. I mean, Jan was boinking him all over that cage. But
he's just so muscular here.
To Patrick's credit, man, he was bleeding all over the place, but he outlasted him.
Yeah.
And he used 2 moves he used a lot was when he'd get him on the ground, he'd do a can opener.
Yeah.
So he'd hold his head and like restrict his breathing, like mess with his body.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of tiring him out. And he'd like to put his his head into Jan's chin, and he was trying to bleed in his eyes and stuff.
Oh yeah, he was just being all kinds of
old school dirty
fighting, wrestling kind of techniques.
And yeah, that's kind of how he fights. And I mean, I give him more credit. He's better than I thought he'd be after watching his first UFC fight where Daniel just threw him on the head and beat the shit out of him pretty much. Yeah.
What did you think about the preliminary card on Fight Pass? Did you catch that?
I did. I didn't get to see the Russian fella beat the Demolition Man. I saw some highlights of that one, but I caught every other fight. Let's start from the top to bottom, man. Gregor Gillespie, man, he looks like a killer, man.
This was, I believe, the shortest fight on the card, and yeah, man, he put him down with some really accurate looking punches. I did not see this fight, but I did see it as whole as a GIF. That's how short it was.
Yeah, it only took 21 seconds, man, and like. For a guy that was NCAA champion, what's that big wrestler? He had like a rivalry with Jordan. What's the Jordan Parsons or no? Parsons was the Bellator guy.
I can't recall.
Apologize. Anyways, Gregor's like really high level NCAA guy, and he's been getting it done with strikes, which is really impressive, man. And he really hurt Andrew with a beautiful left hook. I didn't know that they did this, but they had like a pre-fight hype video, I guess because it was pay-per-view for every fight. So
Mm-hmm.
even on these, they had one, and he was talking about how Buffalo's probably as close to home as he's ever gonna fight, and how he's gonna be a problem for everybody. And he just kind of proved that night, and he called for a top 10 fight after this. And I don't see why he shouldn't get it, and I don't see why he wouldn't give some of those guys problems.
Yeah, man. We kind of predicted it. Gillespie is looking like the prospect that he is. Undefeated up until now, I believe, still, and is really, really showing his way in the division. I think he needs a step up fight.
Yeah, when you got grappling and wrestling that's top level, and you're striking scary,
Yeah.
that's a scary prospect right there.
I believe that some of that Ray Longo coaching, where he's able to shape some of these wrestler boxers into these complete MMA machines that are able to get far.
Speaking of shaping athletes, the Black Zillions were able to kind of do that with Des Green, who had a great performance. I remember saying on the show that last week that I favored Josh Emmett. I saw the betting line and I changed up on you guys. Sorry about that. And I actually put my money on Des Green. I thought the line was kind of off for the quicker fighter. And he proved that. And like we talked about last week, he was going to win by peppering shots and moving around. And that's kind of what happened.
That was a good transition, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I did not see this fight. I don't have much to add. It looks like it was
Back and forth
a
fight.
competitive fight.
I don't think the split decision was warranted. To me, it was pretty unanimous, but it was back and forth. Emmett had a little success. You know what Emmett's really good at? He's good at running and throwing that looping shot while he's running. And
He
the
catches
one
people with
that
that.
people are not expecting because they're like, how the hell did he get from there to there? He throws that shot a lot.
Is that a switch up?
Mm-hmm.
Kinda.
I guess
Gotcha.
that's the actual name of it, a switch up. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's the actual name, but he kind of like runs away and does a switch stance.
Yeah.
And,
He
and catches
runs. He
somebody.
kind of like fakes a left, and then he comes with a looping right.
Gotcha.
Kind of that deal. And it's a very tiring style. In all of his UFC fights, I've noticed him kind of decline in the energy towards the end, while Des Green was fresh. Got a takedown in the third. Worked on top with that takedown. It's a good fight, man. These guys are skilled wrestlers, and it was a good fight, evenly matched, and that's what I felt about a lot of these fights. The one prior to that was the same way, man. Chikagian versus Irene Aldana, really evenly matched. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting towards the end, so I'm getting all tongue tied. But evenly matched fight, went back and forth the whole time. This one also could have been fight of the night, Dema.
Yeah, man. I wanted to say good performance for Desmond Green over tough and tricky Josh Emmett. Again,
Agreed.
I didn't really see the Fight Pass portion of this card. I don't have much to add other than, these fights look close and competitive. I'll have to go back and review them.
Yeah, they were good ones. I'll definitely get with you with the ones that you should definitely watch again. You did get Gregor Gillespie was easy for you to watch.
I did go back and catch the finishes. I went back for the Burgos over Charles Rosa. I went back to see the Gregor Gillespie and Andrew Hallbrook, and I joined around the time Kamaru Usman and Sean Strickland was just wrapping up, so I got to see the Miles Jury fight, which was dope fight.
Yeah, and hopefully our listeners are okay with you having a life.
And much like I would be okay with our listeners having a life, and
Yeah,
it's all in the game.
me, I'm kind of a fight dork. I rarely miss any. I'm sure you're the same way, man. Dima, I know. Well, I know you're the same way. I'm not sure. I know you're the same way. I know that you're gonna catch these fights that you miss, but not fast enough to tell you guys about them.
Yeah, and I'm a dork just like you, and your knowledge of the sport is the reason why you make a good co-host.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that, Dima. Moving right along though. The first fight, neither one of us really saw, but I did see some highlights. Bibliotov pretty much dominated Loose out. I think he got mostly 30-26 on the scorecards, and had a really dominant third round while winning every round in the fight.
I did not, again, didn't see the fight, but I did do research because we talked a little bit about it in our preview. Janelle was the good boxer from Philippines, and Magomed Bulatov, your
World Series of
sambo,
Fighting Champions.
your sambo guy, dominant grappler, and kind of saw this fight go the way you would see a striker versus grappler go. The grappler was able to capitalize on the striker's weaker points.
Yeah, big prospect for the UFC. They got him as World Series of Fighting Champion, a guy that they wanted because of the way he fights, brings exciting fights, and a guy that they can market in the future. You know, they got rid of some Russian guys. Now they're bringing this fella along, and he's a real good prospect as well. Granted, I don't agree with the cuts they made with the other guys. Moving right along. I know you. Oh, did you have something to add?
I believe we were going to go a little bit into Bellator. Is that what you were going to transition into?
Yeah, Bellator had a card on the same day. Um, Neither one of us caught too much of it. I did catch the final three fights, so I was gonna talk a little bit about that.
Go ahead, man. I will kind of ask you questions about it as I did not see it.
hmm well, the first fight I saw was a really talented guy from the Netherlands, Jamil Chan. He's got a form of autism, makes it a little bit more difficult for him to learn. And he's had really good success as an MMA fighter. He's got a lot of strength, scary strength. But he fought a young 23-year-old guy. They're both young. I think Jamil's 27. Valerio Merchao is 23. And man, Merchao being 23 really looked like a seasoned veteran in there with his transitions on the ground and his confidence in his stand up.
Who won the fight?
This fight was won by Romanian fighter. I believe he's fighting out of Brazil. Don't quote me on that. I know he's Romanian. Valeria Merchao.
Marchao. Okay. So good to see Bellator give a chance and a platform to somebody with a learning disability. And he does have the potential. He's got some scary strength, so that's interesting.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, if Bellator didn't give him the chance, somebody would give him that platform because he's a really darn good fighter. It's not like he's there. They didn't give him a chance because of his special need. They gave him a chance because he's a damn good fighter.
Hell yeah.
But moving right along in the co-main event, they had Anastasia Yankova completely dominate Ilyana Kulinado, 18-year-old girl out of Greece, a woman out of Greece. Just won every round. Anastasia, it looked like a grown woman fighting a young gal. Is kind of what it looked like.
Anastasia of Slavic descent, Russian.
Russian girl.
Yeah.
Russian girl. I'm not sure exactly where from in Russia, but Russia. She represents Russia.
Nice.
Really pretty. Oh, I'm out of the microphone range, but really pretty girl.
Well, you corrected yourself, so that's what we're about, correcting ourselves on the go.
That's right. But the Greek girl Ilyana, she's got a little bit of a struggle MMA game, man. She, like I talked about earlier, fighters that get by like as their number one skill being heart. That seemed to be her two performances in the Bellator. And her most success against Anastasia was she did kind of lump up Anastasia a little bit because she caught her with like two, maybe three unexpected spinning back fists. But besides those crazy wild technique of spinning back fists, she really didn't have much success anywhere else.
Right on.
And finally, in the main event, man, this was a knockout. If you haven't seen it yet, look it up. This guy, Melvin Manhoff, man, every time he fights, he's either knocking somebody silly or he's getting knocked out silly.
Melvin Manoff has fought and been like one of the most explosive fighters in for decades.
Yeah, and this was a rematch for the middleweight championship. This was Melvin Manhoef's 45th fight, and this is an MMA. So Lord knows how many kickboxing matches, Muay Thai matches this guy has had. You'd probably have to Wikipedia him for
Hundreds,
that.
hundreds.
Yeah, this is a true warrior, and it's starting to catch up to him a little bit. But their first fight, man, Melvin looked like the superior fighter. Rafael had not a lot of. He threw 27 punches in 5 rounds in the first fight.
That's not very
This
active.
this fight, it went 4 rounds. It went 4 rounds. He won every single round against Manhoef. He pressured him with a nice pressure striking style, threw kicks, and eventually got the head kick knockout.
Yeah, you kind of answered my question there. I was gonna ask, were the 26 punches effective?
In the first fight, not effective enough to win. I
Okay.
scored the fight for Manhoef. I thought it was a blatant robbery. This fight was clearly Carvalho came in a different fighter and a threat to that Bellator middleweight division.
But things did not go his way. Did it? Or did he
Carvalho
win?
won with a head kick.
Oh, well, I didn't watch the fight.
Oh,
I
that's
was, I
all
was
good.
gonna
Yeah.
ask you who won. I
Yeah.
thought Melvin Manov won.
No, he got brutally head kick knocked out.
Oh no.
And he lost every round. The Carvalho looked like a complete. That's what I'm telling you. The Carvalho looked like a completely different fighter this time
Gotcha.
around. Yeah, it was a different story than their first fight. And
And
good way to start the day in Italy.
Manov is kind of a reckless fighter, for sure. That so I could see somebody able to take advantage of the openings against a reckless Manov.
I don't know if I would call it completely. Well, I guess the style opens itself up to being reckless, but it's kind of like it's a chess match in there. It's kind of like what we talked about Burgos earlier. When he was first starting off, it's like, hey, my wildness and my power is better than anything you got for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a trust in your skills. But yeah, you're right. It's a little bit reckless style.
It's a darn effective one. For the people that have the power, the explosiveness, the speed. It's just taking a step back and analyzing it. When you're throwing all your power into a shot and you don't hit your target, at times you are exposed to being countered naturally.
Yeah, these are all things that you got to consider and train for. And sometimes they're risks. It's risks over reward when you come to fighting. But overall, man, good day of fights. Bellator in Italy to round out our day. Watching UFC at night. It was a lot of fun. Did you have anything to add, or do we have any news for this week?
It's very true. I like that Bellator is doing kind of a good job staying relevant week throughout week, even though we're seeing the UFC kind of come back with the plethora of cards that we're about to see.
Yeah, good point. What do you think about their they're going into different markets. This is Italy. They just got out of Israel not long ago. They're trying out different markets for Bellator. They're trying new things, Scott. I like it. I
I
like it.
I think they're taking advantage of something that we're seeing in WME
WIMG?
WIMG strategy,
Okay.
where they're pulling back from kind of these international markets that we saw the previous owner Zufa invest so much in.
I think, yeah, that's a great point, Dima. I definitely noticed that because this card, it was a little bit lacking. I mean, that's why we kind of watched the last 3 fights and the two before that. I mean, Anastasia Yankova versus Ilyana, Lord knows what her last name is not a fight that many MMA fans are like clamoring, like, oh man, I got to be at home to watch the Anastasia fight. Maybe some Russian fans are doing that,
Mm.
but I do see where you're coming from. They kind of put this. This is probably their least rating MMA, or excuse me, least rated main event that they were gonna have. Carvalho versus Manhoef rematch.
Yeah, but put it somewhere in Italy to create a buzz for some, mixed martial arts and
Yes, and
make a scene.
keep a consistent product. Still, hey, we still got Bellator coming to Italy. We got a couple fun fights, but now they're gonna go for the big cards with their big signings. but still have cards like this here and there.
Yeah. With all due respect, Scott Coker is.
Cock Coker.
Oh man, yeah, I'm getting tongue tied as.
Cockring Coker. Well, wait, this is an MMA podcast. I can't insult Scott. And I like Scott. That would be bad.
Dude, he's a smart son of a bitch, and he's doing every right move as far as how he's handled Bellator.
Yeah, even though you made that funny mix up with his name, he's a great promoter. I mean, the only one comparable to him is Dana White. And, Dana White has a lot of tools at his disposal that Coker does not. And Coker's doing a lot in the, 4 years he's been there now?
Yeah, Coker knows how to compete with UFC.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He knows how to bring a solid MMA product in.
That he has a very good relationship with people that he's built over years. And on top of that, he's really good at kind of filling in the holes where UFC can miss their opportunities. Kind of like we're seeing with this international thing. Not much more to talk about with this Bellator. I do want to get into some news and fight announcements that are still fresh in our minds and are current. Is there anything you want to start us off with?
We had Kelvin Gastelum. Oh, I guess no, this is, for us, this is news to you guys, but we found this out at the beginning of the week. Kelvin Gastelum failed for marijuana in his system. Oh. So, because it was a post-fight failure, yeah. Oh. Ooh.
That's a big ooh right there.
Bad the boy. But because he failed for marijuana, he has now officially been pulled from the Anderson Silva fight on UFC 213.
Shit, this could not. I'm sorry to interrupt. This could not suck anymore for Kevin. He does not get the big money fight against Anderson. That's scrapped now. His victory versus Vitor is likely to be overturned, even though he beat the brakes off of him.
Yeah, that's gonna be a no contest, and that's really sad.
And on top of that, he's going to have a monetary fine and he's not going to be able to compete for a certain amount of time while the guy in his prime. That's the most unfortunate,
Yeah, I don't want to incriminate myself, but I've dabbled in the marijuana in my life. And I really hate that they have to deal. So, like, when they get caught for metabolites in their system, I feel like the punishment's too harsh, man.
Yeah,
no contest, loss of money, loss of prestige, all of that.
Yeah, and I can, I feel for the guy. This really sucks. With that being said, rules are rules, and when they're there, you're at a professional level. It's also part of your job to make sure this shit doesn't happen. I'm sympathetic to him because, I also have smoked. And I don't think there's any substantial performance-enhancing qualities to pot.
Yeah, the only
if not being detrimental even.
The only possible way I could see any kind of enhancement from smoking marijuana, Dema, is if prior to the fight you smoke some pot and it calms your nerves a little bit. That's really the only way. I don't see it helping out anywhere else. Maybe some guys they could smoke their pot and it can motivate them to practice a little bit more because, hey, I'm high, I want to do something while I'm high. But that's individual for every person, different.
Yeah, it's completely different for everybody. Because I've run into people that
smoke
have
and
completely
just sit on the couch and do nothing.
Yeah, the variety of effects it has across people is very different. So with that being said, like I said, this really sucks. He doesn't get to fight Silva. So there was some talks about Silva having another fight, potentially against Rockhold. Now, this isn't anything official. There has been just one of those back and forth situations where a lot of MMA sources were floating this announcement around. However, I believe Anderson's management has responded that this thing is not official or possibly won't even happen. So What do you make of this?
Yeah, a lot of the smaller websites have really clung on, like they heard the news, they announced it as official. Like we talked about earlier, me and Demo, we don't announce something unless we got two really good, reliable sources. Otherwise, we don't think it's right to trick you guys, the listeners. With that being said, UFC said that this is not official. Is that a fight that I want to see? Yeah, probably even more so than Anderson versus Kelvin. Um, because Luke's had that layoff, and I think that it's a good stylistically. That like the way that their styles match up. I said style three times in one sentence, but the way that they match up against each other, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree with you. That would actually be a tremendous fight.
Yeah, I think so. I would heavily favor Luke Rockhold, but I don't think it's not winnable for Anderson.
No, in that Rockhold has been through some shit.
He's got some holes in his game.
Bluntly put, and Anderson is always dangerous.
Yeah, he's well. I don't know if you can call a hole in your game being underestimating people, but Rockhold's got a tendency to underestimate his opponent a little bit, and it backfired real bad versus Bisbing. And I think it'll be hard for him to not trust his skills versus Anderson, and that could bite him. But I do think that he's ready just about everywhere. If he's on like he fought Chris Weidman, I don't see why he shouldn't beat Anderson Silva. But like I said, that fight's not official.
By holes in his game, I want to clarify. I think he's a complete fighter. He's a tremendous grappler and striker both. By holes in his game, I want to say he has a tendency to make mistakes and put himself in risky situations, kind of like Weidman does sometimes.
Yeah, takes risks to make the fight more exciting. Weidman, I think, takes a risk because he trusts his jiu-jitsu game. I think they do it for different reasons, but I see what you're saying. Weidman takes risks because he knows he's got a really mean choke. He knows, he's got the jiu-jitsu to finish you. So he might take a risk going for a leg, going for a choke, which might put him in like you said, a dangerous position and get the face beat.
Yep. But I would like to see this fight.
Yeah, great fight. I don't know why it was rumored. I guess from what I understand, it was offered to Rockhold. Rockhold accepted, and there's been no answer from the Silva side yet.
Maybe it's one of those things where one side wants the fight to happen, so they start generating some buzz around it,
I can see
in order
AK
to kind of fish for it, because we did see it. It's a strategy.
Yeah, AKA is one of the most seasoned, best camps out there. I can see them doing that. I mean, even Talgate, they probably had some influence in that.
Towelgate. Everything is a gate now.
That's what they're calling it, Talgate. But it was it was a little bit sportsman play by DC. Fair play. He definitely had a couple fingers on that towel.
Yeah, I think he had his whole hands on the towel. And a lot of people came out and said, "Oh, that's the oldest wrestling trick in the book right there."
Yeah, my issue, and I blame it. I don't blame DC for playing the system, man. I think that like they have video before he even like got off stage and started, rehydrating, renutritioning himself. He should have just been weighed again. They should have been like, wait a minute, that was a no go. The videotape shows that you're putting your hands on the towel. You gotta weigh again. Like, why is that so hard to do, man? Like, if I can think of that and I'm just some bozo, the New York State Athletic Commission's gotta do better.
Ooh, conspiracy alert, conspiracy alert. What if they're in cahoots with one another? And they were like, just let Daniel, put his hands on the towel and the lady looks the other way for a few seconds.
Granted, I don't know about all that. I do think here's my understanding of it, Dima. In championship fights, that 1 pound allowance is no more. So Daniel had to weigh 205 exact. He's not allowed to be 205.9. Like, that's kind of what happened with GSP Nick Diaz. Like, GSP came in 170.9. It's supposed to be 170. And they kind of just strong-armed Nick Diaz. Typically, you have the choice as the opposing fighter to be like, no, he's got to lose that 0.9 for us to fight. And then he's got 2 hours to do so. What could have possibly happened is Daniel went to the back to under one.
Anthony?
Yeah, 1.2 over
Okay.
for one of them. So what happened eventually? Well, no, my hypothetical, what's a possibility is if Anthony goes in the back and Daniel goes in the back, and they say Anthony goes, I don't care if he's zero point 0.9 over, then that fight's a go. You don't have to even do the reweight. So that could have been for show.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to have a Alex Jones hour over here, but I do want to have, like, it's fun to hypothesize about potential conspiracies from time to time.
Or what the heck happened?
It's entertaining.
I mean, that was kind of, we've never seen that before in MMA, where a guy just like in front of everybody, and I'm a huge DC guy. To do that in front of everybody and get away with it was kind of funny.
But this is a very fascinating talking point. This is why we circled back, and we're still talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, we have a pretty exciting card coming up next week, and if possible, we might do maybe episode 10.5 and do like a quick preview for that one, which probably won't be longer than 15 minutes.
Yeah, we don't like, it'll probably be a little bit longer than 15, but we don't like, dragging it on, and we know that this has been kind of a long show because we had a real exciting week. But, yeah, man, we're going to preview the card probably later on in the week for you guys, and just hope you enjoy episode 10. We're glad we made it this far. It's been a lot of fun, and we hope to keep bringing you quality MMA, podcasting.
Yeah, guys, if you want to support us, you can catch us on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and also MMApodcast.com. We appreciate all of our listeners, and this has been really fun. This thing is a journey. We look at it as a journey. It's a learning process, and I feel like despite having some troubles along the way, I feel like we grew, we learned a lot, and this is a really productive thing.
And we just really want to thank you guys that have been with us from the start, our real hardcore fans of Shoot the Ones. And if you guys are just, joining us now, we're glad to have you along for the ride. We just love talking MMA, and we're glad that you can enjoy it with us.
Yeah, man. I'm hyped. Again, next week, Demetrius Johnson is going to be defending his belt. We're going to do a quick preview of that, and for the next episode, we're going to be excited to talk about the outcome of that card.
Is he the main event versus Wilson Hayes?
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
There's a big co-main event on that too, right?
Yeah, man.
Good, man. Well, I look forward to previewing that. Hope you guys enjoy your week.
Thanks for shooting the ones with us.
Dema and Genya,
out.